The rain hit the cracked sidewalks of the city like scattered shards of glass, shimmering in the neon glow of evening traffic. People hurried under umbrellas, their shadows stretching across the pavement like silhouettes of forgotten lives. Among them walked Amina Rahman, her thin coat clinging to her shoulders, one hand gripping the torn strap of her messenger bag, the other steadying the small child on her hip. At first glance, she looked like any exhausted young mother commuting home after another unforgiving day. But Amina carried something heavier than fatigue. She carried invisibility to most who passed her. She was just the tired, brown-skinned woman with the baby. No one noticed the fire in her eyes, the intelligence behind her quiet demeanor, or the way she carried herself with a resilience forged in hardship. Tonight, however, the world felt especially cold. Her daughter, Noor, barely 2 years old, pressed her cheek into Amina's scarf. Unaware of her mother's racing heartbeat, just a little longer. Sweetheart, Amina whispered into the child's hair, soft, dark, smelling faintly of baby shampoo. Mama's almost home. Home. If one could call a single damp room in a failing building home? Amina shifted Noor's weight, ignoring the stinging pain in her shoulder. She had worked a full shift at the cafe bussing tables, dealing with customers who treated her like she barely existed and stayed late because the evening employee had called in sick. The manager didn't thank her. He simply said, "You're used to double shifts, right? This shouldn't be hard for you," because she was a single mom. Because she needed the work. Because people like her didn't complain. Rain dripped off her scarf, sliding down her neck. She winced at the cold, but kept walking. The city that tested HR buses roared by without slowing. Amina couldn't afford the fare today. Rent was due in 3 days, and she was short again. Every rupee mattered. Every decision mattered. Even the smallest mistake could ripple into disaster. Her phone buzzed, a cracked screen. Second-hand device she treated like treasure. Message from landlord, rent reminder. "No delays this month?" Another message followed, almost instantly. "You know the rules?" Mina's stomach twisted. Yes, she knew the rules. 3 months of being late meant eviction, and she had already been late. Twice she walked faster. A voice from the PSD, the streetlights flickered overhead, buzzing softly. Amina's mind drifted back to a place she tried hard to forget, the university she once dreamed of attending. The scholarship she once held, the career she once almost secured. She had been studying computer science. Her professors had called her promising. She spent nights coding until dawn, solving problems others struggled with. But then life changed. One mistake. One abusive partner. One terrifying night, and she was alone. With a pregnancy she hadn't planned. A future she hadn't imagined. She left everything behind: her degree, her pride, her freedom, because protecting Noor mattered more than anything. Still, the ache remained. The ache of being born with brilliance, yet forced into a life that didn't recognize it. The calf eye inside teen by the time Amina reached the corner near her building. The rain had eased. She adjusted Noor's blanket and whispered, "Almost there." Then she heard someone shouting behind her. "Hey, you?" Amina turned cautiously. A group of teenagers stood near a bus stop, laughing loudly. One of them, a tall boy with headphones around his neck, pointed at her. "You dropped something." Amina looked down. "Nothing," he smirked. "You dropped your dignity working in that crappy cafe every day. I see you there all the time." The others burst into laughter. Amina's cheeks burned. She hugged Noor tightly, stepping away. The same boy called, "People like you should be grateful anyone even gives you a job. Right, guys?" Laughter again. Amina swallowed her anger. Fighting back would only make things worse. She kept walking, her breathing unsteady. Noor sensed the tension and whimpered. "It's okay, baby," Amina whispered, though her heart pounded. "Don't worry," as she turned onto her street. She didn't notice the sleek black luxury car parked at the corner, windows tinted, engine humming quietly. Had she looked, she would have seen the silhouette of a man in the back seat watching her with sharp curiosity. But Amina kept moving, unaware that someone had already taken notice of her struggle. Someone who never overlooked anything. Someone whose decisions could change lives with a single sentence. the building that crumbled. Like her HOP, her apartment building was a leaning block of disrepair, peeling paint, broken windows patched with cardboard, stairwell lights that hadn't worked in years. She pushed open the heavy security door, which didn't lock, and climbed the stairs slowly. Halfway up, Mr. Talbot, the landlord, poked his head out of his office. "You're late again? No greeting?" "No. Hello? Just an accusation." Amina paused. "Sir, it's the 1st of the month and rent is due on the 3rd. He narrowed his eyes. "Don't make excuses." She forced a polite smile. "I'm not." "I'll have it ready. You said that last month, too." She tightened her grip on Noor. "I know. And I paid barely." Gay slid to Noor. "Kids cost money. If you can't afford rent, I can." "Good. Then prove it on time." He disappeared inside, slamming the office door. Amina exhaled shakily. "Just a few more days," she whispered to herself. "You can do this." Call that should never have CIO'd inside her room. She laid Noor on their small bed and changed out of her damp clothes. For a moment, she stood still, rubbing her aching shoulders. Then her phone vibrated again. Unknown number. Amina almost let it ring, but answered cautiously. "Hello." A formal voice replied, "Is this Ms. Amina Rahman?" "Yes." "This is Central General Hospital." Amina stiffened. "Hospital, why?" "We have a patient here who listed you as their emergency contact. They've been admitted following a sudden collapse." Amina's pulse thundered in her ears. Who listed me?" There was a pause. A rustle of papers. Then the nurse said the name. A name Amina hadn't heard in years. A name tied to the worst and best memories of her life. A name she thought she would never speak again, and her knees almost gave out, because that name belonged to a man who vanished from her life as quickly as he had entered. A man who once held unimaginable power. A man Noor unknowingly shared a half of her face with. A billionaire. And now he was calling for her. Asterisk, the moment Amina heard the name. Her breath froze in her chest, as if the world had suddenly dropped into silence. Rain outside her cracked window softened into a distant hush, the city's noise dissolving into nothing but the pounding of her own heartbeat. "Please," she whispered into the phone, gripping the edge of the table to steady herself. "Repeat the name." The nurse spoke clearly this time. Arslan Halim. Amina closed her eyes. That name once meant warmth. Once meant promises. Once meant escape. Now it felt like a ghost ripping open a wound she had spent years stitching shut. "Are you sure?" She stammered. "That he listed me." "Yes," the nurse replied. "You're the only emergency contact he provided. The only one." Of course, Arslan Halim had always lived at the top of the world, surrounded by wealth. Status, investors, polished glass offices, luxury cars, and bodyguards. But when it came to real connection, real people, real loyalty, he had almost no one except her. Once the nurse continued, he collapsed during a board meeting. "He's stable, but he keeps asking for you." Repeatedly, Amina's throat tightened. He asked for me?" "Yes. He refused treatment until we told him we'd called you." A strange mix of fear, anger, and something dangerously close to lingering affection surged through her. But she forced her voice steady. "I have a small child. I need a moment." "I understand," the nurse said. "But he's insistent. And, emotionally distressed." Short pause. "Please come as soon as possible." The call ended. Amina stared at the ceiling, her pulse roaring. Why now? Why, after all these years? Why call her? She turned to look at Noor sleeping peacefully, thumb in her mouth, face soft and innocent. A wave of guilt hit her. No one, not even Arslan, knew. Noor existed because the day Amina discovered she was pregnant was the day Arslan changed into someone she no longer recognized. Flashback, the girl who believed in fairy tales years ago. Amina was a gifted scholarship student at a prestigious university, code running through her fingers like poetry. Algorithms bending to her imagination. She met Arslan at a technology conference. He wasn't a billionaire then, but the potential radiated off him like heat. A visionary, rebel. A man who made her feel seen in a world that constantly overlooked her. He called her brilliant. He called her extraordinary. He called her the missing piece of his life. Amina believed him. But ambition is a hungry creature. As his tech company exploded into success, so did his hunger for power. His meetings doubled. Trips tripled. He vanished for days, then reappeared with gifts meant to replace apologies, and when Amina told him she was pregnant, he froze. Then he asked her to wait, to be patient, to understand that timing is important for men in his position. She remembered every word, every pause, and finally the moment that shattered everything. He said, "I can't slow down now. Not for this. Not for you." It's no argument. No discussion. Just a brutal line drawn between his world and hers. Amina left that night. She never looked back. Now the choice she never expected to face sat on the edge of her bed. Heart pounding. Going to him meant reopening a trauma she fought hard to bury. But ignoring a call from the hospital, ignoring someone asking for her during an emergency, her conscience wouldn't let her. She exhaled a shaky breath and gently wrapped Noor in a dry blanket. "Mama has to go somewhere," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Just for a little while." Then she knocked on her neighbor's door, an elderly woman named Khadija, who often watched Noor when Amina worked. "Oh my, child," Khadija said, "you look pale. What happened?" "Someone from my past is in the hospital," Amina said bitterly. "Someone who shouldn't matter anymore." Khadija gave her a knowing look, the kind older women acquire after decades of witnessing love rise and fall. Sometimes, the past returns because the story is not finished. Amina swallowed. "I just need you to watch Noor for an hour or two." "Go," Khadija insisted gently. "Your daughter is safe with me." Amina nodded gratefully, kissed Noor's forehead, and stepped back into the night, a night that suddenly felt colder. Heavier, unpredictable. The Hospital of Glass in POWI Central, General Hospital, towered over the city like a monument of steel and wealth. But Amina felt like an intruder as she walked through its gleaming automatic doors. The marble floors reflected her worn shoes. The bright lights highlighted every exhaustion line on her face. At the reception desk stood a nurse in crisp white scrubs. "Name?" the nurse asked. "Amina Rahman." The woman typed quickly. Then her expression changed slightly, as if she recognized the name from the chart. "Yes, Ms. Rahman, he's been waiting for you." The nurse didn't need to explain who he was. She led Amina through long hallways, past private suites reserved only for the wealthy. The smell of antiseptic filled the air, mixed with the low hum of machines. They reached a quiet corner of the VIP ward. "He's inside," the nurse said softly. "Just prepare yourself. He isn't doing well." Amina inhaled deeply, then pushed the door open. The billionaire who looked Biaroki and Arsalan Halim, usually impeccable, intimidating, immaculately groomed, lay in the hospital bed with 4 tubes connected to his arm. His hair was damp with sweat. His usually commanding eyes were glassy, his breathing shallow. But the most shocking part, he looked small, frail, human. His head turned slowly toward the sound of her footsteps, and when his gaze landed on her, everything inside him seemed to break at once. "Amina," he whispered, voice trembling. You came." She stood frozen near the door. "You shouldn't have listed me as your emergency contact," she said quietly. "I'm not part of your life anymore." Arslan closed his eyes, pain flickering across his face. Not physical pain, but something deeper. "I know," he whispered. "That was my mistake. The worst one I ever made." Her jaw clenched. "So why call for me?" He swallowed. "I wanted to see you," he said slowly. "One last time?" Amina stiffened. "What do you mean last time?" His fingers trembled as he pulled back the hospital blanket slightly, revealing bruising near his ribs and a monitor blinking irregularly. "Amina," he said, voice cracking for the first time in his life. "I think I'm dying." Her breath caught in her throat. But before she could speak, before she could even process the weight of his words, A team of doctors suddenly rushed into the room. "Mr. Halim," one called urgently. "Your vitals are crashing." Machines began beeping wildly. Nurses swarmed the bed. Amina was pushed aside. In the chaos, Arslan reached a shaking hand toward her, his eyes wide with fear. "Amina, don't leave," a doctor cut in sharply. "We need to stabilize him now. Everyone move." The room erupted into alarms, shouting medical commands, and Amina stood frozen, her heart pounding louder than the machines. Because as the billionaire ex-lover who abandoned her fought for his life, she realized something terrifying. He wasn't afraid of dying. He was afraid of dying without telling her the truth. Asterisk, the truth unravels cinematic long-form emotional drama approx. 3,800 words. The hospital lights dimmed into a muted glow as night settled over. To Mercy's. Down in the maternity wing. The air felt charged thick with tension, worry, and the kind of anticipation that makes every footstep echo like a heartbeat. Amelia's heartbeat. Her baby's heartbeat. And somewhere inside this maze of unspoken truths, seeing his heart too, Ethan. Reed walked the hallway like a man carrying a ghost on his back. His crisp white coat had been swapped for navy scrubs, sleeves rolled up, jaw tense. Nurses stepped aside instinctively, not because he was their billionaire benefactor or the hospital's largest donor, but because of the look in his eyes, something between fear and fury. Sharper than any scalpel in the surgical wing, he had just watched Amelia clutch her belly. Shaking from the agony of contractions mixed with years of unhealed hurt, he had watched the woman he once loved still loved look at him as if he were a stranger holding a knife to her past. And the worst part? He didn't blame her, not even a little. The room that held too many Memorias Amelia lay in the dim hospital room, bathed in the cold white glow of a monitor that beeped steadily beside her. Her breathing was shallow, not from the contractions, they had been spaced out now, but from the weight of everything happening at once. She placed a hand over her belly and whispered softly, "Hey, little one. Everything's okay. Mommy's here." Her voice cracked. She wasn't sure anymore. She looked toward the door, knowing Ethan was probably on the other side, pacing, waiting, wanting to fix things he didn't understand. She squeezed her eyes shut. She had tried for a year to erase him, to forget his warmth, to bury the memory of his laugh, his hands. His heartbeat pressed against her ear on nights when the world felt forgiving, but here he was, the father of her child, the man who destroyed her, the man who had no idea. A tear slid down her cheek, and she whispered, as if confessing to the ceiling tiles, "Why did you come back now?" Ethan's war with himself outside. Ethan leaned against the wall, fists clenched. He could hear her. He could feel her. He could almost smell the familiar scent of her strawberry hair oil, the one she used when she still believed in fairy tales. Before money, status, and betrayal carved their scars into both their lives. The door clicked softly, and Nurse Helen approached him. Clipboard in hand, eyes gentle. "You okay, Dr. Reed?" He exhaled. "No," and "yes," and "I don't know." Helen smiled with understanding. "You care about her." He didn't answer, but his silence was louder than words. "She's in good hands," Helen said, tapping his arm gently. "But she's scared, and she's clearly carrying something heavier than childbirth." Ethan nodded, but Helen didn't leave. She studied him the way only nurses can, seeing the human under the armor. "Doctor, sometimes patients need more than medical intervention," he swallowed. "I know. She needs truth," Helen whispered, and then she walked away. Truth? Yes, the one thing he had avoided for a year because facing it meant facing himself. Flashback, the night everything by Roe, Kate, it came back to him like lightning. The last night he saw Amelia Snow falling outside his penthouse window. She stood near the fireplace, fingers trembling as she held a crumpled envelope. "Ethan, are you hiding something from me?" He had been so consumed by business pressure, the world demanding another version of him every hour, that he had looked at her with a coldness he didn't recognize. "No," he'd said flatly. "Then why is your assistant telling me you're planning to move to London? Without even talking to me?" He had rubbed his temples, exhausted. "Amelia, that's not—" "You didn't deny it." He'd snapped then. "Maybe from stress. maybe from fear. But he had snapped. "I don't owe you explanations for every decision I make," he'd said sharply. Her face had broken. Like glass. An Ethan idiot. Coward. I didn't realize at that moment that she wasn't accusing him of betrayal. She was begging, not to be left behind. But he had walked away first. He had let her go. Let her walk out that door, and he had spent every night since hating himself for it. Back to the present pain returns. A sudden cry burst from Amelia's room. Ethan's instincts kicked in. He rushed through the door and saw Amelia doubled over, gasping, clutching the rail of the hospital bed. "Contraction?" he asked, voice sharp with concern. She didn't answer. Her eyes squeezed shut, teeth clenched. Ethan moved to her side instantly. One hand on her back, the other steadying her arm. "It's okay. Breathe with me. In. Slow. Good. Out. Steady." She followed his rhythm, their breath sinking the way they used to in the quiet hours of sunrise. When they shared a blanket and a heartbeat, the contraction passed. Her trembling deepened. Amelia opened her eyes and looked directly into his. Anger, fear, love, hurt, all tangled in one impossible gaze. "Why are you doing this, Ethan?" she whispered. "What? Acting like you care?" His jaw tightened. "I do care now." Her laugh was brittle. After a year. He opened his mouth, then closed it. She stared at him with the ache of a woman who has carried a truth alone for too long. Where was this Ethan when I needed him? She whispered, "Where was he when I found out I was pregnant? When I had no job? No home? No support? Where were you?" Her voice cracked like thunder. Ethan felt each word slice into him because he didn't have an answer. He had never received her calls. Never saw the letters she said she sent. Never heard anything from her again, and he had assumed that she had moved on. He stepped closer, hand trembling as it hovered near hers. "Amelia, why didn't you tell me?" She bit her lip so hard she tasted blood. "I did." The world fell into a cold silence. "What?" Ethan breathed. "I told you," she whispered. "I left you messages. I sent a letter. I emailed. I tried everything. Your assistant told me you were busy with your new life. She said you didn't want complications." Ethan's eyes widened. His assistant. The same one he fired 2 months later for quietly manipulating company decisions. "She never told me," he whispered, horrified. "She kept everything from me. Amelia, I swear to you reaching out. I never knew. Not a single message." Amelia stared, stunned. "She told me you didn't want me." His heartbeat staggered. "God, Amelia, no," he choked out. "I wanted you. I always wanted you. I thought you left because you didn't need me anymore. I thought you threw me away." Their pain met in the middle like colliding storms. The monitor beeped. Something was WRONG. The fetal monitor suddenly spiked, then dipped sharply. Amelia gasped. Ethan's medical instincts surged. "Hold on," he whispered, hitting the emergency button. "Nurse, we have late decelerations." The door burst open as Helen and 2 nurses rushed in. "What's happening?" Amelia cried. Ethan gripped her hand. "Your baby's heartbeat is dropping. We need to react fast." Fear flooded her face. "Is my baby okay?" She whispered, "Stay with me. We're working on it." The nurses repositioned her, adjusted the monitors, prepared oxygen, but the dips continued. Helen looked at Ethan with a tense expression. "We might need to consider an emergency C-section." Amelia's breath hitched. Ethan pressed his forehead briefly to hers. "I won't let anything happen to you or our baby," he promised. Her eyes widened at his words. "Our baby?" This time, the monitor beeped again stronger. The heart rate began. It's climbing, stabilizing, normalizing. Helen exhaled. "She's responding." Crisis avoided. Amelia burst into tears. The nurses slowly filed out, leaving the room quiet once again. The moment of tear-tetton, sat at the edge of the bed. Taking Amelia's hand in both of his, she didn't pull away. Not this time. "Amelia," he whispered, voice thick. "I am so sorry for everything. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry you thought I didn't care. I'm sorry you went through this alone. If I had known tears rolled down her cheeks, I'd thought you abandoned me. I thought you walked away from us." Their fingers slowly intertwined. "I should hate you," she said, quietly. "You have every right." "I don't," she admitted, voice trembling. "I never could." Ethan's breath caught. His thumb brushed her hand gently, the kind of touch that remembers love even after it breaks. "I want to be here," he said softly. "For you?" "For her," he glanced at her belly. "For our family?" A sob escaped her throat, and for the first time since she walked into the hospital, she leaned into him, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her. Their broken pieces slowly, painfully, stitching themselves back together. Not fully. Not yet. But enough. Enough to breathe the same air, without drowning in the past. The overheard SECR outside the room. Nurse Helen paused with a clipboard, a soft smile forming on her lips. But behind her, a shadowed figure stood near the corner, someone with a phone pressed to their ear. A woman's voice whispered sharply. They figured out the messages were blocked. "He knows." A beat of silence. Then, "I told you to take care of it quietly. I won't let that woman ruin everything again." The call ended. The figure stepped into the faint light, just long enough to reveal Lethan's former assistant, still lurking. Still involved, still dangerous, and Amelia had no idea she wasn't done with her, not even close. Asterisk. The betrayal in the SHDOWS night settled heavily over St. Mercy's Hospital, the kind of night that turns glass reflections into ghosts and whispers into warnings. The maternity wing, usually soft with the warmth of new beginnings, felt colder tonight, like something unseen moved through the air. Inside room 309, Amelia finally slept, but her peace was fragile. And danger was closer than she knew. Amelia's restless. Dara Mur breathing slowed into soft rhythms as fatigue dragged her into sleep. But her mind wasn't gentle with her. She dreamed of running down endless hallways, holding her pregnant belly, calling Ethan's name, but every door she opened slammed shut. Every voice she heard vanished into darkness until she reached one door. The door of Ethan's old office. She pushed it open. Inside stood Ethan's former assistant, Victoria Hale, cold, poised, smiling. "You should have stayed gone," Victoria whispered. The door slammed. Amelia jolted awake. Heart pounding, chest heaving, sweat dampened her temples. The room was dark. Quiet, almost too quiet. She clutched her stomach, forcing herself to breathe. "It's just a dream," she whispered. But something inside her whispered back. No, it wasn't. Ethan's restless WATS meanwhile. Ethan Reed stood at the far end of the hallway, hands gripping the railing as he stared down through the glass atrium. His reflection looked older than he remembered, haunted, tired. Burdened Helen approached quietly. "You still haven't gone home?" she said. He shook his head. "I'm not leaving her again." Helen studied him. The billionaire world knew Ethan as a powerful, disciplined executive, untouchable, unstoppable. But here, under flickering hospital lights, he looked like a man stripped bare. "Ethan," Helen said gently, "when she told you she tried to reach you, what did you feel?" He swallowed hard, like the ground vanished. "And now? Now I feel terrified of losing her." He shook his head, of not deserving her. Helen placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "Then earn it," she said simply. Before he could respond, the elevator doors at the end of the corridor slid open with an eerie chime. A woman stepped out, tall, sharp suit, ice-cold stare, hair tight in a bun that looked carved. Not styled Victoria Hale, Ethan's former assistant. The woman who caused everything. The woman who stole Amelia's messages. The woman who now walked toward him with polished confidence like she had every right to. Ethan froze. Helen stiffened beside him, and Victoria smiled. The confrontation, Ethan, she said, her voice oily and smooth. You're hard to catch. Ethan's jaw tightened. What are you doing here? Checking in, she said sweetly. I heard you were at the hospital with the girl. Helen stepped forward protectively. The patient. She corrected with emphasis. Victoria barely glanced at her. Yes, the patient. Ethan felt something dark stir inside him. You sabotaged her messages, he said flatly. You blocked her calls. You lied to both of us. Victoria didn't flinch. You were overwhelmed, she replied coolly. I was protecting your schedule. You had no right. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. I had every right. I was doing what you couldn't. What I couldn't. Ethan repeated slowly, venom rising. You mean what you wanted? Victoria's eyes hardened. You were changing? Losing focus? Getting weaker because of her. I couldn't let that happen. He stared at her, really stared, as if seeing a monster he once mistook for a person. You ruined the best thing in my life, he said, and nearly destroyed hers. Victoria didn't deny it. Didn't apologize. Didn't show an ounce of shame. Instead, she smirked. She was always a distraction. A liability. Ethan took one step forward, nostrils flaring. Finish that sentence, he growled. And I swear. Helen placed a calm hand on his arm. Doctor, she warned softly. Victoria lifted her chin. I see you're sentimental now, she said. It won't last. People like her don't belong in your world. She's going to complicate things. Again, cold pause. She already is. Ethan's fists clenched. Leave, he said. Victoria blinked. Excuse me? Leave the hospital. Leave my life. And if you come near Amelia again, I will personally make sure you never work in this city. Her eyes flashed with fury. You have no idea what you're risking, she hissed. And you, Ethan replied, have no idea who you're up against. Helen stepped between them. You heard the doctor. Leave. For a moment, Victoria hesitated. Then she turned sharply, heels clicking, like gunshots down the corridor. But she didn't leave the hospital. Asterisk, not really. Not in mind. Not in plans. Not in danger. Back in Amelia's, ROA Amelia sat awake now, staring at the clock glowing softly on the wall. She tried to calm herself, but her heart still hammered. She whispered to her belly, everything will be okay. Mommy's just scared. Her baby kicked lightly as if answering, I'm here. Her breath trembled. She wasn't just scared of childbirth. She wasn't just scared of seeing Ethan again after so long. She was scared of losing control of her life again. A knock sounded softly. Amelia. Ethan's voice. She closed her eyes briefly, then said, come in. He entered carefully. As if approaching a wounded bird, you should be. Resting, he murmured. So should you, he offered a tired smile. I can't sleep. Gee. Looked up at him, really looked tanned. Saw a storm of guilt. Behind his eyes, what happened? She asked softly. He hesitated. Then, Victoria is here. Amelia stiffened. My old assistant. Amelia's blood ran cold. Why? Why would she be here? I don't know, Ethan admitted. But she approached me. And Amelia. She's the reason I never got your messages. The words hung in the air like smoke. Ethan continued. She said she did it to protect me. But I think she was trying to control me. Maybe more. Amelia pressed a hand to her belly, trying to steady herself. She wanted me gone. Ethan's eyes softened and burned with something protective. She's not getting anywhere near you again. Amelia stared at him. Why do you care so much now? His voice dropped to a raw whisper, because I still love you. Her breath caught. Ethan. He stepped closer, kneeling beside the bed so they were eye level. I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I failed you. But Amelia, every night for the past year, I've regretted letting you walk out that door. If I had known about the baby, about High, would have moved. Mountains to find you. Tears slipped down her face. You weren't supposed to find me this way. I'm glad I did. She looked away. This is too much, she whispered. Too fast. too painful. And I'll wait, he said gently. As long as you need. Her shoulders trembled. Ethan, I'm scared. I'm right here. She looked back into his eyes and for a moment, something soft, fragile, familiar flickered between them. But before either could speak again, the monitor beeped sharply. Amelia gasped. A sudden bolt of pain cut through her, belly like a blade. She clutched the bed rail. Something's wrong. Ethan's voice snapped into medical mode. Amelia, breathe. Stay with me. The monitor spiked wildly. Ethan hit the emergency button. Helen. We need help in room 309. Amelia screamed as another contraction far too strong, far too early tore through her. Her water broke violently. Helen rushed in. What's happening? Rapid dilation, Ethan said. Uncontrolled contractions. Possible abruptity. Placenta prepare for emergency C-section. Amelia sobbed. Ethan, please don't let anything happen to her. I won't, he shouted, gripping her hand. Nurses flooded the room. The lights flashed. Machines whirred. The hallway buzzed with alarms. Ethan leaned close to Amelia, forehead against hers. Look at me, he whispered. Don't look at anything else. You're not alone. She stared into his eyes as chaos erupted around them, and for a moment, a fragile, desperate moment, they were the only two people in the world. Victoria's final MOV, down the hallway. Victoria watched through a small glass window. Phone pressed to her ear once more. They're taking her to surgery, she said coldly. You know what to do, a voice on the other end responded. Victoria smiled wickedly. Good. Make sure she doesn't. Walk away from this with everything. She hung up in the surgical. Lights gleamed ominously as Amelia was wheeled away. Unaware that the danger wasn't her body, it was the person waiting behind the glass. Asterisk, the miracle, the reveal. And the JUSDIC, the surgical wing of St. Mercy's Hospital, was alive with movement's sterile lights. Rushing footsteps, clipped orders, and the kind of tension that clings to the air like static. But for Amelia, it was all fading into a blur as the gurney rolled beneath the surgical lamps. She clutched Ethan's hand like a lifeline. Please, Ethan, don't let anything happen to her. You're safe, he whispered, though his eyes betrayed a storm. I'm right here. Both of you are coming out of this alive. But Amelia's vision wavered, her breath faltering as the world narrowed around her. Promise me, she gasped. Ethan leaned down, voice breaking. I promise. The operating ROM, the double door slammed shut behind them. Inside the operating room, every second counted, blood pressure dropping. A nurse called out. Fetal heart rate unstable. Another added. Ethan fought through the chaos, shoulders squared, eyes sharp. The medical team quickly prepped Amelia for an emergency C-section. Scalpel. Ethan instructed. A surgeon extended a tool butt. Ethan's instincts tugged. Something wasn't right. Helena noticed it too. She leaned in. What's wrong? Ethan glanced around the room. Where's Dr. Patel? He's supposed to be assisting, the nurse replied nervously. He was replaced for this case. By who? Ethan demanded, before she could answer. The replacement doctor stepped in, tall, shadowed, expression unreadable. Ethan's gaze narrowed. I didn't authorize a change. The man smiled thinly behind his mask. Administration said you were emotionally compromised. Ethan's jaw tensed. I'm the attending physician? She is my patient. And no one touches her without my consent. Dr. Reed, a nurse, started, but Ethan had already moved between the stranger and Amelia. Protecting her. Step back. Ethan commanded. The man didn't. He stepped closer, and Ethan noticed something his. Badge.fake. The barcode didn't match hospital format. His heartbeat spiked. Helen saw it too. That man isn't staff, she hissed. In that instant, the stranger lunged not for Ethan, but toward the surgical tray where a sharp instrument gleamed. Ethan grabbed his wrist midair. Twisting with precision and force, the man yelped, dropping the tool. It stumbled backward. Security alarms blared. Nurses gasped. Helen activated the emergency lock. Ethan pinned the man face first against the wall. "Who sent you?" Ethan barked. The man spat the answer venomously. "Victoria." A wave of cold washed over everyone. Helen whispered. Horrified, she wanted Amelia's surgery to fail. The man tried to struggle, but Ethan's grip tightened. "Get him out of here." Ethan roared. Security burst in, dragging the intruder away, and just like that, the room went silent. Every second was precious now. Amelia's heart rate wavered. The baby's heartbeat fluttered dangerously low. Ethan took a breath, steadying himself, then addressed the team. "Prep for the incision. We're doing this now. No hesitation. No fear. Just resolve." The room moved instantly under his command. And Ethan, Billionaire Dr. Once heartbroken, lover became the man Amelia always believed he could be. "The delivery incision made," said calmly. "Suction, retractor." His hands were steady, movements precise. Helen monitored Amelia carefully. "Her vitals are stabilizing," she said. "Keep going." Ethan worked with surgical finesse years of training, thousands of hours, and the desperate love he couldn't hide powering every motion. Almost there, he murmured, "Come on, little one." Then a tiny sound. Not a cry, not yet. Asterisk, but the faintest whimper. Helen's eyes widened. Ethan. He lifted the baby gently into his arms. A girl, small, fragile, silent. "No, no, no. Come on," he whispered desperately, rubbing her back. "Breathe, sweetheart." Seconds dragged like lifetimes. Amelia, half-conscious, whispered hoarsely, "Is she alive?" Ethan leaned close to his daughter's tiny face. "Come on. Please, please breathe." Then a sputter, a gasp, and suddenly a cry, a loud, strong, perfect newborn cry. Ethan's shoulders shook with relief. "She's okay," Helen exclaimed. "She's breathing." The room burst into motion, again cleaning, wrapping, checking. Confirming, Ethan pressed the tiny bundle to Amelia's cheek. Her eyes fluttered open, and for the first time in hours, maybe in months, she smiled. "She's beautiful," Amelia whispered weakly. She looks like you." Ethan choked on a laugh. "She's a miracle." After Ermit. Hours later, Amelia rested in a recovery room, IVS removed, colored back in her cheeks. The baby, now peacefully sleeping, lay in a small hospital bassinet. Beside her, Ethan entered quietly. He carried a folder, not medical files, official documents. Amelia looked up. "What is that?" Ethan sat beside her bed, face solemn but soft. "Proof," he said. He opened the folder. Inside were emails Victoria had deleted, call logs she had blocked, security footage of her accessing Ethan's devices, a recorded confession from the man who tried to sabotage the surgery, a restraining order request, a termination letter for Victoria, and finally a transfer of guardianship to ensure Amelia and the baby had round-the-clock protection. Amelia stared, stunned. How? How did you get all this?" "I started pulling records the moment you told me she lied. And after what just happened in the OR," he exhaled. "I'm done letting other people decide our lives." Her eyes glistened. "I didn't want to be right about her." "Sorry," Ethan whispered. "For everything she did in my name. For everything I let slip through my hands." Amelia's voice trembled. "Ethan, I wasn't trying to ruin your life. I wasn't trying to trap you with the baby. I just wanted you in her world. Even if we couldn't be together." His voice broke. "Amelia, I wanted a world with you. You're not the distraction. You're the reason I stopped drifting." He took her hand gently. "I love you." Her breath hitched. "And I've never stopped loving you." Silence swelled between them, soft, warm, full of unspoken forgiveness. Then Amelia whispered, "What happens now?" Ethan looked at their sleeping baby. At first he said, "I came back into your life because fate forced me to." Then he looked at Amelia. "Now I stay because I choose to." A tear rolled down her cheek. "But we can take it slow," he added. "One step at a time. I'm not here to overwhelm you. I'm here to support you. To protect our daughter? To be the father she deserves? And what about us? Amelia asked timidly. He lifted her hand to his lips. That part is up to you. You saved us. Shook his head. No, he said softly. You saved me. She stepped closer. For the first time since they'd reunited. For the first time since before the lies, the pain, the heartbreak. She kissed him. Slow, sweet, healing, when they pulled apart. She whispered, "Welcome back." He rested his forehead against hers. I'm home. Epilogue. 1 month Latera handwritten note hung above the baby's crib. It read, "Respect everyone. Love, honestly. Protect family." For our daughter, below it were 2 signatures. Amelia Harper, Ethan Red. The past had hurt them. The present had tested them. But the future, that belonged to all 3 of them. Together.